Hey there, Julian from MemberStack here, and in this video we are going to go over something that every single Webflow developer should know because it is crucial for your site success, and that is what should you do when you first launch a Webflow site to ensure it is optimized for SEO. And I cannot in this video review absolutely everything that can be done to optimize your site. That goes very, very far. There's people who work on that full time. But what I am going to tell you is all of the little things that you can do to make sure your site is where it needs to be. Those things that maybe in 6 months you would have realized and gone, oh, I really should have done that before. So anyways, let's get into it right now with the first one, and that is Webflow Subdomain Indexing. Now, what this means is every Webflow site has a staging domain. So as you can see here, we have memberstack.webflow.io, and by default, for some reason, Webflow has this set to off, which means that Google is trying to index your subdomain and then it's competing with your real domain. And that is not good for search. Google doesn't like that. So just one click in the site settings in the SEO panel, you can turn that off. Now it's a bit confusing how it says on and disabled, but it doesn't matter. Next thing that you should do is auto-generate your sitemap. Now, if you are working with a company and let's say they have a custom generated sitemap or you have a custom generated sitemap, obviously, this does not apply to you. That being said, if you don't, then clicking this right here, auto-generate sitemap, will provide Google with something that is super useful, and that is a whole map of all of the pages on your site, at least the ones that you've set to be indexed. So once you do that, then you're going to get a URL, and that is going to basically look like this. It's going to be your domain /sitemap.xml. So you're going to want to keep that in mind for our next tip, which is Google Search Console. So here I am in Google Search Console right now, and it's going to look like this at the start. Now, the first thing that you need to do is actually verify your site. So you just need to go search up Google Search Console, click the first option, make an account, and then it's going to ask you to verify your domain. And what that usually involves is going into your domain host, so GoDaddy, Namecheap, whatever it may be, and adding a DNS record for verification. It's usually a TXT record, maybe always a TXT record, and doing that will confirm to Google that you own it. And then you have Google Search Console, and what Google Search Console is in all essence is a little place that you can go to give Google little nudges and say, hey, this is what we're doing. You should index this, you should check this. And it's also a way for Google to actually report problems back to you. So if you have any issues with your indexing, you're going to get an email, which is really, really sweet. So anyways, once you verified your your domain with Google Search Console, then you will be faced with a screen like this, where you have these options. And what you're going to want to do is click Sitemaps, and then paste that URL that we talked about earlier in here and click Submit. Now you've officially told Google, hey, I'm legit, I'm the owner of this domain, and here are the pages that you should find and show people. So this is super important, especially if you're a brand new website, because Google doesn't really know anything about you. It can take a long time to figure out who you are, what your site is, who to show your site to, and this is just helping it out quite a bit. So the next thing that we should talk about is heading structure, and this is one that maybe you've already focused on while you're building the site. Maybe you haven't. I don't know, but I'm going to mention it to you anyways because it's a very easy fix. So on the web, all headings are supposed to have this structure here. You already know most likely that there's H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. Those are not just to do with sizes. That is actually to tell search consoles, to tell browsers, to tell devices the hierarchy of your content. So as you can see here, I pulled up this diagram, not sure who made it, but this shows how it works. Your page needs to have an H1, and that should say the default kind of, this is what the page is. So if you are a Webflow agency, it should say like Webflow agency in London. And then you kind of have to try to blend CRO and SEO, but that's a topic for another video. Point is, then that's the title of your whole page. And then it's broken down into sections which are marked with H2. And then within those sections, if you have more headers going on, they should be H3. Within those, H4, H5, H6, so on and so forth. The point is you should never just have, let's say, an H3 without it being inside of a section that has an H2 set already. So that is one that you could kind of easily go through and just check, do I have the correct hierarchy here? And it should definitely make a little bit of a difference. back in the Webflow Designer, the next thing that you want to do is make sure that your meta titles and your meta descriptions are set. So especially if you are a Webflow developer, you may not know this by default because this is more of a job for someone who works on SEO. That being said, it is super, super important. When you go into the pages here and hit that settings, you have the option to basically tell search engines, this is what you should display to people. This is what this page is about. So you should write that. Again, we have memberships for Webflow, design in Webflow, scale to millions, and a description of what MemberStack is. So yours should obviously be relevant to whatever page that is. And this one is a little bit more obvious, but something a lot of people do not look at, and I've seen a lot of people miss, especially when I'm going and working on someone's Webflow site that I didn't create, is collection pages. And what I mean by that is the following. So if you take a look over here, you have your CMS collection pages. And I'm going to open, for example, the components template. And MemberStack has a lot of free Webflow components if you didn't know. But here we are. Now, if we open the pages again and then go to the settings right there, you can see this. We can use things from the CMS to create this meta title and this meta description for each individual page. A lot of people overlook this, but it is super important, especially when you're using the CMS heavily. So the final thing that I want to talk about is running a Lighthouse test. And this is just like a final little bit that you can do to make sure there's nothing that you're missing. And don't get too obsessed with this because I can confidently say your Lighthouse score does not directly represent how well your site will do in search. Don't get obsessed. There are certain times where having a bigger image to make your site look better, to provide a better user experience, is more worth it than having a smaller, blurrier image with a lower size. So don't get too obsessed with this. That being said, it can reveal a lot. So all you need to do is go on your live site, right-click, go and inspect. This is in Chrome, by the way, or Arc to be specific, but yours might be a little bit different. And then you could click Lighthouse right there. And you have some options here. Usually mobile is kind of the more trickier one, so that's the better one to run. You're going to get better scores on desktop almost all the time. And then we don't need to have progressive web app here, but pretty much everything else is good to have. So let's click Analyze Page Load, and then let's wait and see what it's going to tell us. All right, so here we are, and our Lighthouse report is done. And as you can see, we've got some stuff going on here. Some great, SEO is 99. Some other things, not so great. And this will break everything down for you. And another thing I want to mention is this will be different every single time. Depends on where you're located. It depends on a whole lot of things. So if I run this again, the score will probably be a bit different. That being said, we can see some stuff here. When I go in here, I can look at this minimize main thread work and see what's going on over there. Do I immediately understand anything to do? No. Let's move on to the next. Here we can see reduce JavaScript execution time, and it tells us where the JavaScript is coming from. So for me, some of it is Chrome extensions, which that's purely my own browser. That has nothing to do with the site. And then also certain things that we can't remove, like Webflow JavaScript. Then a whole bunch of different things. Usually in the realm of images is where I find this to be useful. So if I go ahead and hide that, and then let's see, we have properly sized images. Here, there we go. This is telling us that these images, we can reduce the size of them to save this amount of space and make the site load a little bit faster. So there's a lot of stuff here it's going to recommend to you, and the chances of you actually solving 100% of them are slim to none. I've never seen it in my career. But you can go through this and see what are some quick wins that you can implement in order to make your site better for search. So that is it. To conclude, the things that we've learned here are, first of all, you need to disable your Webflow subdomain indexing. The second thing is you need to automatically generate a sitemap or have a sitemap. Third thing is you need to set up Google Search Console, and you need to tell Google Search Console what your sitemap is, where they can find it. Then you're going to want to make sure your heading structure is in order. You're going to want to make sure that you have set your meta titles and descriptions properly. And then finally, you can run a Lighthouse test to see any other quick wins that you can implement to make sure your site is as optimized as it reasonably can be. So that is about it. I hope this was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.